Hello readers, welcome back to Nutan's library. Friends, all of us want to lead a happy, meaningful and purposeful life. We humans have a quest for happiness since time immemorial. If one were to pose a question, how can one be happy in life? The answer is simple. Live the Adlerian way. Friends, there is this Austrian psychologist Alfred Adler, who was a contemporary of the psychologists Sigmund Freud and Jung. His ideas are not so easy to implement, yet life-changing if made a part of our lives. Friends, in this video we are going to discuss a book titled The Courage to be Disliked. This is a Japanese analysis of the work of the 19th century psychologist Alfred Adler, done by Ichiro Kishimi and Fumitake Koga. According to Adlerian psychology, the world is very simple, life is very simple, and happiness is within the reach of every person. We are the ones who make the world complicated. If we change, the world will appear simple. The issue is not about how the world is, but about how we are. So it all boils down to one thing at the end. Are we ready to remove the dark glasses and see how bright the world is? Can we change ourselves? Do we have the courage? Yes, friends, it's a matter of courage. If we muster the courage to change the lens through which we see the world, then definitely this world will appear simple and we can attain the real happiness in life. So what all do we need to do to live the Adlerian way? Number 1. Understand that all problems are interpersonal relationship problems. As per Adlerian psychology, at the core of every problem, there is interpersonal relationship problem. Whatever the worry that may arise, the shadows of other people are always present. If all interpersonal relationships were gone from this world, in other words, if one were alone in the universe and all other people were gone, all manner of problems would disappear. But at the same time, we know this very well that in a social setting, it's not possible to get rid of interpersonal relationships. We cannot do without interpersonal relationships. A human being's existence, in its very essence, assumes the existence of other human beings. So living completely separate from others is in principle impossible. No matter if we can't get rid of interpersonal relationships, we can definitely get rid of interpersonal relationship problems. Yes, friends, there is a way out. Certainly, there are some tools that we can put to use. Number 1. Separation of tasks. Friends, all of us need to face certain life tasks in our lives, like completing the formal education, then taking up a job, getting into friendships, love relationship, then marriage, children, and so on. Everything goes fine until we start having problem in delivering these tasks well. So we need to understand first actually where the problem lies. All interpersonal relationship troubles are caused by intruding on other people's tasks or having one's own tasks intruded on. Intervening in other people's tasks and taking on other people's tasks turns one's life into something heavy and full of hardship. So in order to deal with these problems, we need to carry out the separation of tasks. We need to simply ask, whose task is this? And then separate one's own tasks from other people's tasks. Now, the next question comes, how do we tell whose task it is? Friends, not to worry, there is a simple way to tell whose task it is. Think who ultimately is going to receive the result brought about by the choice that is made. Once you get the answer, calmly draw the line up to what point your own tasks go, and from what point they become another person's tasks. Now that you have drawn the line, do not intervene in other people's tasks, or allow even a single person to intervene in your own tasks. Friends, Carrying out the separation of tasks is enough to change one's interpersonal relationships dramatically. If you too are leading a life of worry and suffering, which stems from interpersonal relationships, learn the boundary of, from here on, that is not my task, and discard other people's tasks. That is the first step toward lightening the load and making life simpler. Let's look at an example. When a child, let's say, has made the choice of not studying, ultimately the result of that decision, that is not being able to keep up in class or to get into the preferred school, for instance, does not have to be received by the parents. Clearly, it is the child who has to receive it. So we can conclude that studying is the child's task. Now, we often hear parents using the phrase, "It's for your own good," but they are clearly doing so in order to fulfill their own goals, which could be their appearance in the eyes of society, their need to put on airs, or their desire for control. In other words, it's not for your own good, but for the parents. And it is because the child senses this deception, that's why he rebels. So the parents should understand that studying is the child's task, not theirs. They must not intervene in that. Now, we need to pay attention here. Adlerian psychology does not recommend the non-interference approach. Non-interference is the attitude of not knowing and not even being interested in knowing what the child is doing. Instead, it is by knowing what the child is doing and one needs to protect him. If it's studying that is the issue, the parents can tell the child that that is his task and let him know that they are ready to assist him whenever he has the urge to study. But they must not intrude on the child's task. When no requests are being made, meddling in things is not suggested. Naturally, one gives all the assistance one possibly can, but beyond that, one must not intrude. Remember the old saying, "You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink." Please think of counseling and all other assistance provided to other people as having that kind of stance. Forcing change while ignoring the person's intentions will only lead to an intense reaction. Friends, such intricate knots, that is the bonds in our interpersonal relationships, are not to be unraveled by conventional methods. We need a completely new approach here. Forming good interpersonal relationships requires a certain degree of distance. When the distance gets too small and people become stuck together, it becomes impossible to even speak to each other. But the distance must not be too great either. One should be ready to lend a hand when needed, but not encroach on the person's territory. It is important to maintain this kind of moderate distance. Then, another thing that we need to get rid of is the reward-oriented approach in our interpersonal relationships. When reward is at the base of an interpersonal relationship, there's a feeling that I gave this much, so you should give me that much back. This is a notion that is quite different from separation of tasks. You must not seek reward and you must not be tied to it. You should simply do your bit and must not think whether you'll get anything in return. Giving anything back is someone else's task, not yours. So you must not worry about that. Other than this, there is one more problem wherein we can apply the separation of tasks to find a solution. While making our own life choices, we become so much self-conscious. We worry too much on what others will say about our choices. But all you can do with regard to your own life is choose the best path that you believe in. What kind of judgment do other people pass on that choice? That is the task of other people and is not a matter you can do anything about. If you are still thinking what others have to say about your choice, you'll be unfree. you'll not be able to attain freedom in true sense. You simply face your own tasks in your own life without lying. That's all. Don't be so much self-conscious about what you do, how you look, how you walk, or whatever you do in life for that matter. After separation of tasks comes the second tool, and that is self-acceptance. Friends, self-acceptance is the vital step. Accept what is irreplaceable. Accept yourself just the way you are. It's okay for you to be you, and have the courage to change what you can change. That is self-acceptance. So what does it mean by changing what you can change? You ascertain the things you can change and the things you cannot change. You cannot change what you're born with, but you can, under your own power, go about changing what use you can make of that equipment. So in that case, you simply have to focus on what you can change rather than on what you cannot. This is what is called self-acceptance. Remember, we do not lack ability, we just lack courage. It all comes down to courage. If you are unable to really feel happy, then it's clear that things aren't right just as they are. So you've got to put one foot in front of the other and not stop. But there is a word of caution here. Remember, we don't have to do self-affirmation. Rather, we should do self-acceptance. Self-affirmation is making suggestions to oneself such as I can do it or I am strong, even when something is simply beyond one's ability. It is a notion that can bring about a superiority complex and may even be termed a way of living in which one lies to oneself. With self-acceptance, on the other hand, if one cannot do something, one is simply accepting one's incapable self as is and moving forward so that one can do whatever one can. It's not a way of lying to oneself. To put it more simply, let's say you've got a score of 60%, but you tell yourself, I just happened to get unlucky this time around, and the real me is 100%. That is self-affirmation. By contrast, if one accepts oneself as one is, as 60%, and thinks to oneself, how should I go about getting closer to 100%? That is self-acceptance. So while accepting your own self, you don't have to be passive in approach. That okay, I've got this much only, I cannot do great in life. Self-acceptance means accept what you've got, but at the same time strive for the better, because that is something you can do. Friends, when we are talking of self-acceptance, it becomes necessary to talk about inferiority complex too. What is it? Why is it there? You see, everyone is in this condition of wanting to improve. That is the pursuit of superiority. One holds up various ideals or goals and heads toward them. However, on not being able to reach one's ideals, one harbors a sense of being lesser. Friends, everyone on this earth has feelings of inferiority, be it a successful businessman or an Olympic gold medalist. But we need to understand one thing here. The feelings of inferiority and inferiority complex are two different things. According to Adler, the feeling of inferiority can be a trigger for striving and growth. For instance, if one had a feeling of inferiority with regard to one's education and resolved to oneself, I'm not well educated, so I'll just have to try harder than anyone else. That would be a desirable direction. The inferiority complex, on the other hand, refers to a condition of having begun to use one's feeling of inferiority as a kind of excuse. So one thinks to oneself, I'm not well educated, so I can't succeed. Or I'm not good looking, so I can't get married. When someone is insisting on the logic of A is the situation, so B cannot be done, in such a way in everyday life that is not something that fits in the feeling of inferiority category. It is an inferiority complex. So if we have feelings of inferiority, it's fine. It's okay to have. But we must not move towards making it inferiority complex. After self-acceptance comes the third tool, and that is contribution to others. In Adlerian psychology, a great deal of emphasis is given to contribution. It is when you are able to feel I'm beneficial to the community, when you can feel I'm of use to someone, I can make contributions to other people, then you can have a true sense of your worth, and this is by your own subjective viewpoint, not when others will recognize your work as useful. And when you know that you have some worth, you feel content, you feel happy. So you just make your contribution, whether it is on the level of acts or on the level of being. Deny the desire for recognition. Desire for recognition makes you unfree. This is also separation of tasks. Once you are done with your task, recognizing or not recognizing your work is somebody else's task. It's not your task. There is no freedom in a feeling of contribution that is gained through the desire for recognition. We have to break these rigid chains of reward and punishment and choose freedom while aspiring to happiness. Remember, if one really has a feeling of contribution, one will no longer have any need for recognition from others, because one will already have the real awareness that I am of use to someone, without needing to go out of one's way to be acknowledged by others. In other words, a person who is obsessed with the desire for recognition does not have any community feeling yet. It means he or she has not managed to engage in separation of tasks and self-acceptance beforehand. Friends, behind the desire for recognition, it's actually the desire to be liked at the core. It is true that there is no person who wishes to be disliked, but look at it this way. What should one do to not be disliked by anyone? There is only one answer. It is to constantly gauge other people's feelings while swearing loyalty to all of them. If one is living in such a way as to satisfy other people's expectations and one is entrusting one's own life to others, that is a way of living in which one is lying to oneself and continuing that lying to include the people around one. It's a very unfree way to live, you see. So don't live to satisfy others' expectations. Have the courage to be disliked and know what real freedom is. And if you see, why do we crave for recognition? Why do we want so much that people should like us? Because we feel special. So stop wishing to be a special being. Why is it necessary to be special? Have the courage to be normal. There is nothing bad in being normal and ordinary. It's okay. Remember, being normal is not being incapable. One does not need to flaunt one's superiority. If you are able to possess the courage to be normal, your way of looking at the world will change dramatically. Second thing that is needed to live the Adlerian way is you need to know that you're not the center of the world. Friends, the goal of interpersonal relationships is a feeling of community. Community feeling is the feeling that it's okay to be here. When you are of some use to community, either by your acts or by just your being, then you feel that it's okay to be here. There is a sense of belonging, you see. There is this feeling of community. In community, a person is never more than a member of the community and a part of the whole. People who have concern only for themselves think that they are at the center of the world. To such people, others are merely people who will do something for me. They half genuinely believe that everyone else exists to serve them and should give precedence to their feelings. For this reason, whenever they come into contact with another person, all they can think is, what will this person give me? But this expectation is not going to be satisfied on every occasion, because other people are not living to satisfy your expectations. When those expectations are not satisfied, they become deeply disillusioned and feel as if they have been horribly insulted. And they become resentful and think that person didn't do anything for me. That person let me down. That person isn't my comrade anymore. He is my enemy. Friends, people who hold the belief that they are the center of the world always end up losing their comrades before long. So remember, you yourself do not live to satisfy the expectations of others. At the same time, know that you are not the center of the world. It's not right to think that everyone will be at your service. Friends, in community, we have comrades, not enemies. We should begin to have the desire to share with our comrades, to contribute to the community. Community feeling is the most important index for considering a state of interpersonal relations that is happy. So how can we contribute to the community? Well, by making active commitment to the community. One can make active commitment by facing one's life tasks. In other words, one has to stand on one's own 2 feet and take steps forward on one's own, without avoiding the tasks of the interpersonal relations of work, friendship, and love. If you are the center of the world, you'll have no thoughts whatsoever regarding commitment to the community, because everyone else is someone who will do something for me, and there is no need for you to do things yourself. One needs to think not what will this person give me, but rather what can I give to this person. That is commitment to the community. Number 3. Now that we know what is a community and what is community feeling, when we run into difficulties in our interpersonal relations, or when we can no longer see a way out, what we should consider first and foremost is the principle that says, listen to the voice of the larger community. Now, what is this larger community? You see, the community Adler speaks of goes beyond things we can see, like our households and societies, to include those connections that we cannot see. If we will restrict ourselves to the small communities like our schools, workplaces, and the local societies and countries, thinking of them as our absolute and the only community, then let's say when there will be adverse situations in that community, or when we are not able to adapt or keep up with the community, we will end up without a sense of belonging to anything. For such times, it's necessary that we consider ourselves to be a part of the larger world out there, which extends far beyond the confines of the smaller communities of schools, workplaces, or our households. So don't cling to the small community right in front of you. Once you know how big the world is, you'll see that all the hardship you went through in school or workplace or any local community was a storm in a teacup. The moment you leave the teacup, that raging storm will be gone, and a gentle breeze will greet you in its place. Means, once you feel estranged to a particular community, you don't have to lose the meaning of life all at once, because a larger community is waiting out there to hug you and welcome you with open arms. Number 4. Build horizontal relationships in the community. Friends, when we praise someone by saying, "You are such a good helper" or "good job," we actually create a vertical relationship or a hierarchical relationship. When one person praises another, the goal is to manipulate someone who has less ability than you. It's not done out of gratitude or respect. According to Adler, being praised is what leads people to form the belief that they have no ability. Even if you do derive joy from being praised, it is the same as being dependent on vertical relationships and acknowledging that you have no ability. Because giving praise is a judgment that is passed by a person of ability onto a person without ability. When receiving praise becomes one's goal, one is choosing a way of living that is in line with another person's system of values. Whether we praise or rebuke others, the only difference is one of the carrot or the stick, and the background goal is manipulation only. The Adlerian psychology is highly critical of reward and punishment system because its intention is to manipulate people. Adlerian psychology refutes all manner of vertical relationships and proposes that all interpersonal relationships be horizontal relationships. Friends, the meaning of horizontal relationship is equal but not the same. For example, a company employee and a full-time housewife simply have different workplaces and roles and are truly equal but not the same. In horizontal relationships, we do assistance, not intervention. So, intervention is intruding on other people's tasks and directing them by saying things like, "You have to study," or "Get into that university." Whereas, assistance presupposes the separation of tasks and also horizontal relationships. Having understood that studying is the child's task, you consider what you can do for him. Instead of commanding from above that the child must study, you act on him in such a way that he can gain the confidence. Without forcing and with the tasks always kept separate, you assist the child to resolve them by his own efforts. Again, it's the approach of you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. He is the one who has to face his tasks, and he is the one who makes the resolution. So simply put, from now on, you should neither praise nor rebuke. This kind of assistance, which is based on horizontal relationships, is referred to in Adlerian psychology as encouragement. When one is not following through with one's tasks, it's not because one is without ability. Adlerian psychology tells us that the issue here is not one of ability, but simply that one has lost the courage to face one's tasks. And if that is the case, the thing to do before anything else is to recover that lost courage. Number 5. Life is not a competition. Don't get into the power struggle. Friends, there is no need to compare yourself with others. It's enough to just keep moving in a forward direction without competing with anyone. Look, all of us are different. Gender, age, knowledge, experience, appearance. No two of us are exactly the same. Now don't mix up that different with good and bad and superior and inferior. Let's acknowledge in a positive manner the fact that other people are different from us and that we are not the same, but we are equal. It does not matter if one is trying to walk in front of others or walk behind them. It is as if we are moving through a flat space that has no vertical axis. We do not walk in order to compete with someone. We should compete with ourselves, who we were and what do we want to become. Rather than seeing everyone as your competitors or rivals, see them as comrades. It would lead to self-improvement. Now, when we are creating such a space wherein we are in complete harmony with each other, we must not get into a power struggle with others. No matter what the provocation, you must not get taken in. Because after losing in a dispute, one rushes onto the next stage, that is the revenge stage. And once the interpersonal relationship reaches the revenge stage, it is almost impossible for either party to find a solution. To prevent this from happening, when one is challenged to a power struggle, one must never allow oneself to be taken in. Number 6. Don't fall for the life lie. Adler called the state of coming up with all manner of pretexts in order to avoid the life tasks the life lie. One shifts one's responsibility for the situation one is currently in to someone else. One is running away from one's life tasks by saying that everything is the fault of other people or the fault of one's environment. One lies to oneself and one lies to the people around one too. If your lifestyle were determined by other people or your environment, it would certainly be possible to shift responsibility. But we choose our lifestyles ourselves. It's clear where the responsibility lies. Adler never discusses the life tasks or life lies in terms of good and evil. It's not morals or good and evil, but the issue of courage. Even if you are avoiding your life tasks and clinging to your life lies, it isn't because you are steeped in evil. It's not an issue to be condemned from a moralistic standpoint. It is only an issue of courage. So have the courage to face your life tasks. Don't fall for the life lie. Number 7. Choose to change. Choose happiness. Friends, does fixating on what you are born with change the reality? Remember, we are not replaceable machines. It is not replacement we need, but renewal. You are unhappy now because you yourself chose being unhappy, not because you were born under an unlucky star. In Adlerian psychology, trauma is definitively denied. We are not determined by our experiences, but the meaning we give them is self-determining. We make of them whatever suits our purposes. We determine our own lives according to the meaning we give to those past experiences. Your life is not something that someone gives you, but something you choose yourself. And you are the one who decides how you live. Regardless of what may have happened in the past, it is the meaning that is attributed to it that determines the way someone's present will be. Believe in the people can change premise. People are not driven by past causes, but move toward goals that they themselves set. Remember friends, if you change, those around you will change too. They will have no choice but to change. Adlerian psychology is a psychology for changing oneself, not a psychology for changing others. Instead of waiting for others to change or waiting for the situation to change, you take the first step forward yourself. To add here, in Adlerian psychology, we describe the personality and disposition with the word lifestyle. Lifestyle is the tendencies of thought and action in life, how one sees the world and how one sees oneself. In Adlerian psychology, lifestyle is thought of as something that you choose for yourself. If your lifestyle is not something that you were naturally born with, but something you chose yourself, then it must be possible to choose it over again. Whether you go on choosing the lifestyle you've had up till now, or you choose a new lifestyle altogether, it's entirely up to you. You see, when we try to change our lifestyles, we put our great courage to the test. Adlerian psychology is a psychology of courage. Your unhappiness cannot be blamed on your past or your environment. So have the courage to change. Have the courage to choose happiness in life. Number 8. Live in the here and now. Friends, life is a series of moments called now. We can live only in the here and now. Our lives exist only in moments. Adults who do not know this attempt to impose linear lives onto young people, Their thinking is that staying on the conventional tracks, good university, big company, stable household is a happy life. But life is not made up of lines or anything like that. If life were a line, then life planning would be possible. But our lives are only a series of dots. A well-planned life is not something to be treated as necessary or unnecessary, as it is impossible. Friends, live like you are dancing. Life is a series of moments which one lives as if one were dancing, right now, around and around each passing instant. It is enough if one finds fulfillment in the here and now one is dancing. With dance, it is the dancing itself that is the goal, and no one is concerned with arriving somewhere by doing it. There is no destination. One might also think of it as movement in which the process itself is treated as the outcome. Dance is like that, and so is our life journey. We should live more earnestly only here and now. What happened in the past has nothing whatsoever to do with your here and now. And what the future may hold is not a matter to think about here and now. If you are living earnestly in the now, you will not be concerned with such things. Adler stated that life in general has no meaning, but you can assign meaning to that life. And you are the only one who can assign meaning to your life. An experience of hardship should be an opportunity to look ahead and think, what can I do from now on? Friends, life is always simple, not something that one needs to get too serious about. If one is living each moment earnestly, there is no need to get too serious. The life that ends at the age of 20 and the life that ends at 90 could be both complete lives and lives of happiness. The greatest life lie of all is not to live here and now. It is to look at the past and the future, cast a dim light on one's entire life, and believe that one has been able to see something. You see, when one attempts to choose freedom, it is only natural that one may lose one's way. So don't fear of losing your track. At this juncture, Adlerian psychology holds up a guiding star as a grand compass pointing to a life of freedom. Just like the traveler who relies on the North Star, in our lives we need a guiding star. That is the Adlerian psychology way of thinking. It says, as long as we do not lose sight of this compass and keep on moving in this direction, there is happiness. That guiding star is contribution to others. No matter what moments you are living, or if there are people who dislike you, as long as you do not lose sight of the guiding star of I contribute to others, you will not lose your way, and you can do whatever you like. Whether you are disliked or not, you pay it no mind and live free. Now friends, in the end, I'll quote these words of Adler. Someone has to start. Other people might not be cooperative, but that is not connected to you. Then let's dance in earnest the moments of the here and now, and live in earnest. Do not look at the past and do not look at the future. One lives each complete moment like a dance. There's no need to compete with anyone, and one has no use for destinations. As long as you are dancing, you'll get somewhere. When you have danced here and now in earnest and to the full, that is when the meaning of your life will become clear to you. Friends, remember this for life. The world is simple and life is too. So let's not make it complicated and live every moment to the fullest.